Hello students, this is Mr. Z, and today we're going to be talking about examples of force, motion, and friction in organisms. At this time, pause the video and in your journal, write down the title, example of force, motion, and friction in organisms. Okay, to begin with, can anybody remember what a force is? If you responded a push or a pull, then you are correct. Uh, a force is a push or pull which often results in motion. And here we have a picture of a human running. There's a combination of push and pulls to make the muscle moves. Here we have a heart. And there's also a combination of pulling in blood and pushing out blood that's creating the motion in our circulatory system. And even in digestion, there's a combination of pulls and pushes throughout the entire digestive system inside our bodies. And it's not just for humans. If we take a look at plants, it's also a combination of push and pulls. On one hand, we have gravity trying to pull the seedling down. On the other hand, we have photosynthesis and turgor pressure trying to push the plant up. So it is often, in this case, it's a battle between push and pull. Let's talk about the muscular system. Muscles can push off the ground and they can pull back and lift up. And with this combination and push and pull, we can run. Now the one thing slowing us down is friction. So friction would be just every time the human touches the ground. If we take a look at the heart, we have also friction, which is sometimes restricting the flow of blood. And this would be a small blood vessel. And other times, there's not a whole lot of friction. I can explain this here by simply teaching you a little bit about it, the size of the different blood vessels in our circulatory system. Now, a blood vessel is the correct name given to what most people call veins. Most people would just say, oh, these are just veins that are coming out of the heart. But depending on their size, these blood vessels have different names. If it's large, like an artery, which you might find on the side of your neck, it is a large opening and there's not that much friction, and the blood flows very fast through this opening because there's less friction and it's a bigger opening. You would expect, if you cut yourself on an artery, for blood to be gushing out of you. The next size down is a vein. In a vein, there's more friction, but not as much as what you might have in an artery. And the next size down, and are right, these little ones that are just coming out of the veins, those are called capillaries. They are the tiniest veins. These are the veins that you might see in your eyes. And they're so tiny, there's a lot of friction as the blood cell goes through the blood vessel. And so this smaller one, remember, is called the capillary. Because it's smaller, there's more friction and reduces the amount of blood that comes out. If you were to cut yourself anywhere in your body where there's a capillary, sometimes you can find these at the tip of your fingertips, blood will just kind of slowly drip out. If you were to cut a vein, it would drip out a little bit harder, a little bit faster, because there's a little bit less friction. And again, if you were to cut an artery like the one on your neck, it would totally flow out at a super speed because there's less friction in that blood vessel called the artery. So the circulatory system is a very good example of all three things: force, motion, friction, and it's all inside our bodies. When we think about our digestive system, it's all about when you swallow, it's pulling the food through the esophagus, And once it passes through the stomach, then it's a series of pushing, squeezing, and moving the food along the digestive system until finally the waste is removed from your body. And we're going to have friction as well through the linings of the esophagus and through the large intestine and the small intestine. And force motion and friction are not just for humans and animals, it also applies to plants. Here we have a seedling emerging from the ground. On the one hand, we have the force of gravity pulling down on the seedling. As a matter of fact, it will win this battle with the roots. The roots will go down into the ground. However, when the seedling gets water and goes through photosynthesis and develops turgor pressure inside its cells, it begins to stand up and push away from this gravity. So it's a series of push and pull against the forces that are going on when a seedling emerges. Finally, the war is won by the plant as it beats gravity as it goes up. Now, the only other time the plant will fall down is when the force of turgor pressure inside the plant all the water dries up inside the vacuoles, then gravity will begin to win and pull the plant down. So here's an example, again, that we called seedling emergence. In your journal, on the same page that you put example of force, motion, friction in organisms, I would like you to draw these examples of force, motion, and friction. Be sure to label the push and pull motions of force. Be sure to label where the friction may be at play, like in the lining of the blood vessels of the heart, and also the lining of the esophagus and the small intestine, and the friction of the weight of the soil on top of the seed. All right, well, this concludes this lesson, and we'll see you in the next slide.